Now I've finished off the walking stick, including the very end, the knob, which I've cleaned up very nicely and polished very smooth. And I've glued the two parts of the stick together. I've now put them into the jig so that I can show you a very special sort of finish. A really interesting thing about oak is that you can turn it black. You can ebonize it using iron. So for this finish, I want to do that. So I'm going to use steel wool, which is a very simple sort of iron. I'll put that into a jar like this, a little jam jar, and I'll add vinegar. This is white vinegar, and I'll perhaps go about a third of the way up here. And I'll just leave that, and what will happen is, if you leave it, it will actually go like this. It will go this sort of completely dissolve the iron and end up in this sort of very smelly but very dark brown vinegar iron mix, and that will react with this oak and turn it black. You see, as soon as I put it on, from a brown liquid, it's turning the whole oak black. So that's not a stain as such, that's actually a chemical reaction. The tannins in the wood. It's actually a sort of blue-black, which is really nice. So we're going to try and keep the surface live, an edge live. In other words, don't let it dry before I move on. And work my way down the wood. And you can see here that on the side grain it's taking less in, but that will all go black, or this dark blue. Plenty on there, and it'll let it soak in. And I'll let that dry, and then I'll probably put on a second coat, and then I'll just leave that just to work its magic. I've come back a couple of hours later and the whole surface is dry, but raised up. The water in the vinegar has made the fibres expanded, so it's all rough. So I'm taking some very fine wire wool and just knocking that back, getting that nice and smooth again. Then when I finish with this, I need to brush, or otherwise wipe off, all the little iron fibres. I like this colour. I've got to say it's blue-black, and I don't think I'm going to put a second coat on. It's looking really nice. This has all been nicely wire-wooled. I really like the colour. So it's not black, it's this sort of almost inky blue. And I think this is one way they used to make ink from oak in the past. Anyway, so that's now nice and smooth and coloured. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it an oil finish. This is my usual linseed oil and 10% turpentine mixture. I wouldn't put wax on because this is going to be used outside. But what I'll do is I'll just put quite generous coats of this mixture on here. I'll let it soak in and I'll keep adding that. So perhaps 3 or 4 coats of this. And then when that's dry, I'll burnish off, or rather wipe off excess with a rag, and then burnish it up just by rubbing it. Make sure that's all nicely in there. Oh, that's going to look beautiful. And the oil itself will darken the oak. It usually does. I think this is going to look glorious when it's finished. It's the next day. The oil has gone off. So I can polish and burnish that up. And that's looking very nice. Got a nice polished sheen to it. So when this goes a bit dull, you can just add a little bit more oil and freshen it up. So with that, the walking stick's finished, and I guess I should just have a little practice.